In this lab session, I'm going to the first part of this session, I'll try to explain how different types of event handling is available inside Android. Okay, and after that, I will try to take up the program which is there in the list which I've shared with you guys. So first and foremost, I want you guys to understand all the three ways in which you can handle an event. Okay, so let me just begin directly. First of all, in the calculator program, I've removed the code, guys, so that I'll write it from the beginning so that we'll revise it once again also. If you remember how I made this button work, when you click on this button, I want something to happen. All right, so the click what you perform is an action, and whenever that action happens, you want a set of code to be called. All right. So in the beginning classes, I was discussing this predominantly the first 2 or 3 days. We were discussing only about these keywords. The reason is because anymore I won't be explaining those keywords, but rather I'll be using those keywords. Okay. Like for example, a block of code which will be called again and again. We had kept a fancy name for it. Okay. We saw all the possible names which we can give to the core idea of a set of code which will be called again and again. It's called a method in Java, in C Sharp, in these programming languages. Okay, object-oriented programming languages, we call them as methods. In C, C++, you call them as functions. In VB, we call them as procedures. Okay, doesn't matter. What I'm trying to tell is a block of code which will be called again and again. So whenever you click on this particular button, okay, the set of code what I wrote, like take the number, take the two numbers, add that and print that in the label, all those things is a block of code which is going to get called again and again. Only thing which is changing is the input. But the logic what I wrote is not going to change. I hope you follow that, right? So that is what is an action, and you told that button to react when an action happens. Okay, so to put it in simple words, you have informed this component. Okay, I use the word component, but technically it is an object. So basically what you have told is, you have told this specific object to listen for an event to happen. Okay, I hope you follow. Please load the keyword what I'm using. You have asked this object to listen to an event called click. All right. In order to make sure that this object listens, you have kept a person called listener. Okay. On click listener on top of that particular button. All right. So this is how we did in the first class. Now, in this class, I am going to tell you the ways in which you can make this button react. Okay. Now, the first method, let me just put the methods first so that it will be easier for us to follow. Let me just write it as comments here so that I need not open notepad and all. The first method is attach the listener to the object individually. Okay. Or let's say attach the listener to the object. Okay. Remember that, to the individual object. Attach the listener to the individual object uniquely. That's what we did. Okay. Last class we have done that. That's the only method I discussed in the first part. Okay. Let's move on. What's the second one? Okay. We make it as a multi-line comment. Okay. Second one is attach the listener to the class and ask the object to point or to listen to the class. Okay. Now, I'll repeat again. Okay. I've just put, this is not technical definition, guys. I'm just trying to tell you in simple words. Technically, there is a different definition. I don't want to use the technical definition because that will be a little bit more complicated to follow. So I thought it is better to learn it in simple words. Okay. To keep it in simple English. First one, we'll just say attach the listener to the object individually or to the individual object. Attach, second method is attaching that listener to the class and ask the object to listen or to point to the class. Okay, I'll tell you why it's like this. Shortly we'll see that. Third one, create your own method and attach it in the design. Okay. By the way, these words are not from any documentation, guys. I'm telling because I've just, what do you call, transliterated. I've just kept it in such a way that it is it's understandable by us. Okay, that's why I put these words. These are not the technical words, guys. Never use it to tell in an interview or something. This is for you to understand it in simple English. All right, so I'll show all the three today. This is very important, guys. I want you to learn all the three. And it's not like, see, the easiest one would be the third one, but it is not applicable in all the scenarios. That's why I'm telling all the three. All right, so don't look for the easiest one available. Look for learning all the three and implement it based on the scenario. Okay, so I'll tell you what are the scenarios in which these will work. Number one, in the last class, when I added those two buttons in the design, and how I made add button react, how I made subtract button react. Okay, so let me just do it the first way. Please note, I've cleared the code, only the lifecycle code is kept. Okay, nothing else I've kept. I've cleared all the other codes what I did in the last class, so that I can do it here. All right, so first let me try to attach. There are two buttons on my screen, guys. Remember that there are two buttons on the screen. I'll be adding more. Okay, I'll be adding, let's add some more. Okay, let's do it now only. I'll be adding add, subtract, and I also want multiply, divide. Okay, so I want four different buttons. Okay, remember that. So since I want four different buttons, I will keep them one after the other, but then I think my screen will be a little bit smaller. So what I'll do is I'll use one more layout. Okay, I want a layout which will hold my control in such a way that I want the button one after the other like this, not one after the other vertically. I want it like this. Okay, so how do I do it? It's very simple. I'll just drag and drop another layout which will have, I hope I'll just zoom it here, which is the way in which I want my buttons. I hope you can see that. Okay, not this way, not one after the other like this. I want one after the other horizontal way. Okay, so how will I do this? Okay, so I'm just going to drag and drop that horizontal linear layout after this, these two text boxes. Below that, I'm just dropping it. Okay, it is there, but I'm not going to touch that particular because it's a linear layout. It tries to take up the entire, because it's a layout. It's not a control, it's a layout. Okay, so let me just keep the code simultaneously so that you can have a glance. Okay, I'll just split it and keep. All right, so I want you guys to notice this. After two text views, after two edit text, the text boxes, you have put a linear layout. I want the remaining two buttons to be inside that linear layout. So what I'm doing is I'm going to cut these two buttons and put them inside this linear layout. Okay, I can put it that way, or I can just drag and drop them inside. Since I was not able to see it here, I've put it like this. Now, how will I say the height? See, it took the entire, whatever place is free, it took it up because height I've said match parent. So instead of that, I'm going to say wrap content. Wrap the content which is available inside that. Okay, that's it. So now I've got two buttons here. I know that they are weirdly placed. I'll fix that shortly. But right now you can see that the linear layout, what you have, has these two things inside. And then outside that linear layout, you have another one. So look at the hierarchy in which my control is kept. Okay, so outside constraint layout, inside that linear layout, in that linear layout, I have one label that said my calculator, one text box, second text box. Okay, and buttons all are put inside another linear layout horizontally. Okay, so it comes like this. I hope you guys follow, right? So I've kept two linear layouts here, one after the other. But anyway, those two buttons, what I've put here, okay, they are not looking the same. They have a little bit different one because here it says layout gravity center. Here that layout gravity center property is not there. So I'll just copy, I'll paste it below, and you see now they are coming together. All right, so add, subtract, two buttons have been put. Okay, so I'll reduce the word from subtract to just sub so that it's smaller because it's wrap content, isn't it? So right now I've kept the button which says add sub. All right, so what if I want to create another button? You can drag and drop, or you can still simply copy paste the code. Okay, so I'll put two more buttons which says subtract and then multiply and divide, right? So I'll just take that, and here I'll just say, I'll just change the ID because you cannot keep the same ID. So I'll just put mul, and I'll put this as multiply. That is done. And then here I'm going to say div, divide. I'll keep this also. So now I have four buttons, but they are not neat. Okay, you can see that they are all having the same property. All right, but the margin is missing in the buttons, so that's why it's not coming so close to each other. But anyway, even if I put margin, it will try to, because there are four buttons, right? So it becomes a little bit difficult for the system to keep it there. Okay, so I'll just show you. Let me finish this. It's going outside. I hope you guys can see that. Let me just keep only the design. Let's see that the divide button is outside the linear layout. Okay, so we'll see that there are a lot of errors here, but anyway, that's are all warnings, no errors actually. So I'll just ignore that. Okay, I'll click on the linear layout. I'll go to its attributes. All right, and width is match parent you have given, so it will not go. It will the one which is visible will not go outside the content. So let me just keep it like that. Three buttons are there. The fourth button I'll add in the next class by explaining a little bit more into layouts. But this class, my focus is not on the layouts. It's on the event listening. So I will do this in the next class. But right now, let's only focus on how to get. There are three buttons now on the screen. Okay, and I want these three buttons to do its work. One button to add, one button to subtract, one button to multiply. All right, so two values I take and then I do this operation with these three buttons. Okay, so let's do that now. Quickly, how do I've named them appropriately, I believe. Okay, so I have btn add, btn sub and btn mul. Okay, divide, I'll do in the next class. So here, I've kept these things as it is. Now let me go to the code part. I hope the design part is clear. I have three controls simultaneously. All right, and I have to make sure that the same activity is done. When you click on these three buttons, what is basically happening? If you click on add, I'll take input from text box, these two text box, add them and print them. If you click on subtract, what you're doing, taking input from these two text box, subtract them, put the result. Multiply means take the input from these two controls, multiply them, put the result. You can see that I'm repeating the same thing again and again. Okay, with that in mind, let me go to the code. Let me see what is the first way of making my button listen. How do I make my first button how do I make my buttons react to what I'm doing? How do I do that? Number one, attach the listener to the object individually. All right, so with that in mind, let me go back to the design once again. How many objects do I have? Three. I have three objects here which I want them to listen. So if I follow the first method, I have to attach the listener individually to all these three buttons. Okay, so let me do that now and I'll show you the code. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to do this program together, guys, so that you see how I'm changing. I'm writing it in the same program. That's why since I'm recording this video, I'm going to do the entire thing in the same program itself, but I'll delete after I do or comment it out. Okay, so first of all, let me follow the first method. Okay, attaching the listener to the object individually. So what are the objects which I have? So first of all, I would normally recommend all the controls to be globally available so that it is easier for future programs. This program, it doesn't make sense, but let's follow one, what do you call, a prototype, a guideline. Okay, let's follow the same guideline throughout all our programs. So what I'll be doing is, I'll create these values. I'll normally keep them as private. Okay, why I'm keeping it is all these controls what I've created belongs to only this activity. You're not supposed to take it to any other activity. So I just name it as private. Okay, button, and I have three buttons on my screen. So each button I'm going to name it. There I named it as btn add, btn sub, btn mul. Here I'll do the reverse. I'll say add btn, subtract btn, multiply btn. Okay, please note I have created all in one line because all the three are buttons. Class is same, objects are different. Just like creating int a, comma b, comma c. Okay, I've created three different variables. Okay, but here this is not a variable, it's called as objects. I've created three objects for the same class called button. Now how will I instantiate them? Normally with instantiation you just do object name equal to new class name. But you guys already know that I've already informed in the last class that you are not actually creating a new instance, rather you are just mapping an already existing instance. So how do I do? Add btn is equal to find view by id r.id.btn add. First one, done. Second one, subtract btn is equal to find view by id r.id.btn sub. I've explained this in the previous videos. Please do refer them. Okay, so what is this r.id.btn? Okay, I've already dragged and dropped them in the design. So in the design, they have a specific ID. I just want you to go to resources and find a resource with the ID called btn add. That's what I've given here. Like this only, I'll be mapping all the controls, guys. All, not just button. I'm just making sure that it is a control which is there on the design. Okay. That's all. Last one is multiplication button. So mul button is equal to find view by id r dot id dot ptn mul. Done. Okay, so far what have I done? Okay, I've only mapped the objects. I have not attached. I have not followed this first step. The first step says the first way of attaching a listener is very simple. It just says attach the listener to the object individually. So if I want add button to react, what would I do? I'll call that object and say dot set on click listener. Okay, what to fill in that I'll come later, but just keep this in mind. Second one, subtract btn dot set on click listener. Multiply btn, same thing, dot set on click listener, like that. If you write like this and you pass a big method inside this, then it is the first method, attach the listener to the object individually. So here all I need to do, I've also explained this in the last class. I'll tell a little bit more in depth of this today. Okay, so control space, I get an interface there. I'll explain about it in detail shortly. Okay, let me just click on it. It creates a method. 1. No errors are there. Let me just do the same thing here also. 2. 3. Now you see, I've attached the listener to individual object. Okay, wherever if I want add button to react, whatever code I write here, line number 30, whatever code I write will be triggered or will be called whenever you click on add btn. Okay, what I've written in line number 36 right now, where the cursor is blinking, will be called when you click on the subtract btn. Okay, same thing goes to multiply. Here, line number 42, what you write will be called when multiple btn or multiply btn is clicked on. Okay, this is what you have done. Simple. Alright, but the problem is, as the number of buttons go high, your code will be redundant. You see, what I've typed in all these lines of code from line number 27 to line number 45, okay, or sorry, 44, whatever I've typed is repeating. Look at that code. It's same thing. It's redundant code. And what will you be doing in all these 3 blocks of code? Here, in this scenario especially, take the first number, take the second number, add them and print them here. Take the first number, take the second number, subtract them and print them here. Take the first number, take the second number, multiply and print them here. Okay, so all these looks redundant. What do you mean by redundant? Repeating. You're repeating the code again and again. So if I use the first method, you find a lot of redundancy. Okay, so when will I use this particular way? When there is only one. Simple as that. When there is only one button in the program or in the flow of the program, if you are going to only use one button, okay, this is the best way to use. Attach the listener to the individual object. Okay, it's like if you want to tell something to one person, just tell that to that person. That's all. Okay, but the second one doesn't work like that. The second one says, okay, you attach the listener to the class itself. Who's the class here? Main activity. You say attach the listener to the class and ask the object to point to the class directly. Okay, so how is this going to work? Okay, I'll show that shortly, but let me finish this program, what we are looking for. Okay, so let me just create another, this one, what we call it as edit text. Okay, we have 2 edit text in the program. One is take the first number. So I put txt first. Okay, so I'll just put first txt, the first text what he has given, and second txt. Okay, this is what we have taken. Sorry. Okay. All right. Second one, the third one is a label, right? So I have text view also. So I'll just say result txt. That's all. All right. So these are the controls what I have in my design. I've created them globally. Okay. Please note I've initialized them globally. I'll instantiate them locally. I'm repeating the word what I'm using. Okay. Please remember the word which I'm saying here. Initialization. Okay. And instantiation. Please note the difference between these two. What I've done here is just initialization. All right. You have just initialized an object. You have not instantiated yet. Okay. When is it getting instantiated? Here. In this line, it is getting instantiated. So at this point of time, what is the value of add btn? Null. Okay, remember that at this point of time, this is a global variable right now. Okay, first of all, it's a global variable. Why is it called a global variable? Because it is directly inside the class, not inside any method. Which means if I write something like this, I can call it here an on create, I can call it in on start, wherever, any method in this particular class, I can call it. I hope you guys know what is global and local variables. I'll not explain much, but I've initialized it globally, instantiated it locally. Okay, I hope you follow. So as soon as the on create is called, I've instantiated them so that they are available with the value or with the object itself everywhere in this particular program. How will this be beneficial for us? I'll tell when we start with the first program of our lab list. Okay, so anyway, so since I've already got this, what will I be doing? When you click on this button, okay, you cannot retrieve the value what is typed in the text box without the user doing something. So once the user clicks on the button, you want to take the first number, you want to take the second number. I can't write it, let's say, as soon as you call on create. Why? Why can't I call get the value of text boxes on create? Because on create is called the first time an app activity is launched. When an activity is launched, nothing will be there in the text box. I hope you guys follow. When you run this activity for the first time, this text box will be blank. So if I try to get the value from the text box and convert it into an integer, I will get an exception. Because this text box is initially blank, I have to give the input. So once I have given the input, once I am satisfied my input is correct, then only I'll click on add. So I want you to do something only if the add button is clicked on. How do I make sure that happens? You will have to call the value every time a particular button is clicked. You cannot write it generally because this is individual attachment, right? So you have individually you have to get the value. So how do I get the value? All right. So if you want, you can create the int outside that. I can say int a comma b comma c. That's all I can do globally. What is the value of a? I'll get it from a is equal to txt first txt dot get text dot to string. Okay, and it will not work because I'm trying to parse it into a number. Okay, so let me just click on it and say wrap. Okay, since it is outside the scope, I think that's why it's the problem. But anyway, I'll create it inside only because anyway we are repeating code. So let me keep it this way. Okay, so let me just wrap it using integer dot parsen. That's it. So I'll just copy paste the same thing below. I'll just make it as b and not first txt. This is second txt. Okay, I know we have done this before, but I'm just repeating it again. C is equal to a plus b. Okay, that is done. Next, I just need to put it in the result. So I'll call result txt dot set text. I've already explained this in the last class. Never put it as blank. If you want the value, you have to put it as a string. Okay, so I'll say result, concatenate that with C. That's all. My work here is done. So if you click on the add button, this code will happen. I'll copy the same thing. I'll have to paste it for the subtract button. Okay, here I'll write it as a minus b. That's all, right? Result displayed as it is. I'll paste it here and I'll say a multiplied by b. Result is same. So I've just copy pasted the code. But you see, I'm repeating code. Redundancy. Why? I have 3 buttons on my screen, and for each and every button, I am attaching the listener to the object individually. This is a tedious process if you have more than one control or 3 or 4 controls on the screen, and all of those controls should be listening to the same event called click. Okay, that's wrong. That's why we are trying to, by the way, this will also not work. There is a small thing, it's showing a warning. I don't know whether you are able to see this. The color here is different from the colors here because these 3 you have instantiated them, but these 3 you have only initialized them. So how do I fix it? Same way here. I'll just write, please note when I finish that instantiation, what's the difference? Okay, find view by id r.id.et first. Now you see there is a difference. Now this variable is not just initialized, it's instantiated also. Alright, same thing I'll do for the second one. Second txt is equal to find view by id r.id.et second. Now that is also fixed. Yes. Last one is that result txt is a label. Okay, it's a text view. So I'll say find view by id r.id.tv result. Done. Now my program should work. Okay, let me just try whether it works properly. Then we will go to the second method of attaching a listener. All right, I want you guys to remember this thoroughly and try to follow and practice it. Okay, try all the three in the same program, guys. No problem. Okay, but try to understand the concept, not the program. I'm not focused on you to learn how to add numbers. That's not the focus of this program. The focus of this program basically goes to the listener. Okay, here I've used on click. Not everywhere I'll be using on click. On click is the simplest event to understand, because when you tap, something happens on your phone. That what happens when you tap is what I'm trying to tell here. Okay, so very important. Remember this, and once the program runs, we'll just see whether this works. Okay, and once that works, we'll go to the second part of attaching the listener to the class and asking the object to point to the class. Okay. Let's just wait for the emulator to run. Okay. In the meantime, I think I'll just tell you what we are writing when we write here. Okay. I think it's better to understand this a little bit more logically. See, when you write something like this, button dot set on click, when you're writing like this, okay, what is supposed to be passed here? Okay, that's what I want you guys to focus on. So let me just go to the quick documentation and see what it means. Okay, it just means that okay. Here you can see that when the view is clicked, if this view is not clickable, it becomes clickable. Alright, that's all we are trying to tell by saying set on click listener. When you're trying to say set on click listener, you are basically trying to make sure that the system make sure that the button when you click, okay, becomes clickable by just putting this particular method called set on click listener. Just let me okay. All right, that's all we are trying to do here. All right, so what am I passing? Okay, I'm passing an object of on click listeners which comes from a particular method. Okay, I'll show that to you guys shortly, but I want you to understand a very important thing called as interface. Okay, most of you already know what is an interface, right? Okay, so can you guys tell me in the chat window what is an interface according to you? Let me see what is your knowledge about interface before I show you here in practical. What is an interface? Substitute of multiple inheritance. Okay, I'll show that shortly to you guys. What is the substitute of multiple inheritance? But still, you guys are not going to that point. What I'm trying to tell, what I was trying to ask is, in a class, when you write a method, you write the method signature. Okay, what is a method signature? A method signature is something like this. Okay, this is a method signature. Why? It has access specifier, what it returns, what is the name of the method, what will be passed to the method. This line is called as the method's signature. Okay, because with that one line you can understand a lot of things, right? That's a method signature. Here, this method protected is the data, the access specifier. It doesn't return anything. Name of the method is on start, and it doesn't take any parameters. By just looking at this line, I'll be able to understand what this method is, how to call this method, what should I pass to this method, what will I get back from that particular method. This is how a method signature means. Okay, so when I write an interface, basically an interface is just the method signature. It will not have something called as implementation. Okay, but when I write a method which takes a parameter and it does something to it and returns it, the full content of that particular method if it's there. For example, this is not an interface, it's a class method. Why? Because from this bracket to this bracket, what I've written is the implementation. What happens when you call on create, I've written inside it. This is the implementation of this particular method. So this is called as a method which is part of a class. But in interfaces, whatever methods you see, it will only have the signature. It will not have the implementation. Okay, I hope you guys follow what I'm saying. Same logic applies to your program here, what I've done. Okay, I think Gradle build is taking more than 8 minutes right now. The first method is what I'm trying to do now, attaching the listener to the object individually. And second one I'll do shortly once this program runs. Okay, so in the meantime, before the recording started, I had told a few things with respect to the interface and stuff. Okay, I hope you guys remember that. Okay, otherwise I'll just tell you once again that what I have passed here as an object is the object of view class, which has an interface called on click listener. Okay, I am not trying to instantiate an interface. Rather, through the class, I'm trying to call this particular interface, and that interface had a simple method signature which says on click. I have overridden that on click method here in this particular block of code, and you also saw that what I've written here will only work if you click on the add button. If you click on the subtract button, this block should get executed. That's how we have written the code. Now, keeping this in mind, when I change this, I also want you to remember before the recording started, I told one more thing. What is that V which is passed? Okay, this is very, very important, guys. I'll highlight this once again for you guys to remember. The one which has been clicked, the view that was clicked should be passed as a parameter to your on click method. Please remember this. So let's come back here and see wherever you see this view space V, what is passed now. Okay, please remember this. In this part, V is pointing to add BTN. At this point, V is representing subtract BTN. At this point, V is representing multiple BTN. I hope you guys multiply BTN. I hope this is clear. So what is V? V is the view which got clicked. So that has to be passed. And with that only we do this. Okay, here we are not utilizing that V anywhere, but still this is how your method works. And where will I be using this? You will be using that in the second method what I have mentioned. I'll show that to you shortly. But this is how you write the first way. Okay, when will this be, when this way of writing code should be satisfactory? It will be satisfactory only when you have one or two controls maximum in your design, not when there are multiple controls on the design. You can see why it's not favorable, because you're repeating the code again and again. You're repeating the same code every time you click on that. Okay, because every button click is uniquely mapped to a particular object, individual object. Okay, so that's not going to work out for us well, because the code is redundant, which is not good practice of creating. Okay, now if you ask me whether this program will not work, no, it will work. It will work properly. Okay, but your code is redundant and it is not professional. So how do I fix that issue? I fix that issue by doing the second method. You attach. You don't see, when I want to inform something to your class, I inform it in the classroom. But if I want to tell something to the class rep, I message her individually, or let's say 2 or 3 people who have contacted me, I want to inform them alone. Okay, so what should I do? I should not put it in the class. Alright, so I will tell them, if the people who I am trying to communicate is small, I'll attach them to them individually. I'll message them individually. I hope you follow. Right, some people you want to talk. Okay, you want to ask this particular person where you are. Okay, that you will have to put it in the personal message. But if you want to ask all your classmates where you are right now, okay, what are you doing, or did you finish this program? That's something like that. If you are putting that question, then you put it on the class. Okay, and then you say at that particular person and tell him to respond also. That's how we normally work in a group also, right? So here in program, if you want one button to react, or let's say 1 or 2 buttons to react, you tell them individually. But if you want a lot of controls on this, at least one, more than one. Okay, let's keep it like that. This is not a stead and fast rule, guys. Okay, steadfast rule for you guys. I just want to tell you that when you have one control, follow this. When you have more than one control, this is recommended. Second method is recommended. Okay, so I think it's again building for a long time. So let me not run it right now. Let me just keep this on hold. I hope you know it works. Okay, and it works. You can trust me for that. Let me just go to the second part of attaching it to the class. Okay, let me just show that. Let me just comment this entire thing out. Okay, I've commented the entire thing out, guys. Whatever I've typed, I've just commented it out. Now I'm going to let me just cancel this. Okay, I'll stop the Gradle build because I don't want to waste time if it loads once again. Let me write the code. All the codes I'll write first. Working, you can try it in your laptops. Okay, so now I'm going to follow the second method. I hope the first method is very clear to you guys. I'm going to the second method, guys, now. Where the second method says attach the listener to the class and ask the object to point to the class. Okay, so what is the class here? Class is main activity. Okay, now it says attach the listener to the class, but please note main activity already extends from another class. So can I put comma and add one more class? No. Why? Because Java does not support multiple inheritance, which means one class can extend from only one class. Okay, you do not have multiple inheritance in Java. So if I don't have multiple inheritance, what can I do? I want to use that in my, I want to attach the listener to my class, but it's already extending from a base class. Okay, so I cannot add one more base class. That is why they are offering you as an interface. That's why I use the word interface again and again to understand why. Okay, somebody in the chat replied saying that it is the way in which you can perform multiple inheritance. That's what I'm trying to use. I'm going to write implements. Please note, before implements, if I just put comma and call view, okay, and I'll say view dot on click listener. See, that is showing error because you're not supposed to do that. Okay, you cannot call view also. You cannot extend it from two class. That's also wrong. Okay, you can see that it cannot be done. Class cannot extend multiple classes. I want you guys to understand that. Okay, I'll just zoom in for a second. Okay, I want you to understand what is the problem if I add one more class to my already exists. Right now, my says main activity extends app combat activity. Okay, I just added one more. I just put one comma and added one more thing. Okay, but the system says error. What is the error? Okay, class cannot extend multiple classes. Okay, that's multiple inheritance is not available here in Java. So how do I fix this issue? It's very simple. Just remove that. Okay, let it extend from only one class, but it can implement from many classes. Okay, or not classes, but it can, when I say implements, automatically what is expected after this implements is not a class name, it's an interface name. Please remember that. So I'm going to call view dot on click listener. That same interface, I'm trying to attach it. Okay, please note now, I'll tell you what that error is about shortly, but please remember I've done the first step. Attach the listener to the class. Okay, so now you have told me to attach a listener to the class. I have done that. Okay, followed by which my system is asking, okay, I'll implement this interface, but if I'm implementing this interface, I'm supposed to implement its method. Please remember that when you are implementing an interface, you have to implement all its methods. Okay, all its methods. That's the rule. I hope you would have studied that. So with that in mind, I'll just go and say I have implemented this interface. Now the system is throwing an error. Let's read that error. Okay, so the ways in which you can fix that error, two choices it's giving. Number one, implement the methods. That's what I just told. Okay, if you are implementing an interface, you must implement all the methods mentioned in that interface also. That is Java's rule. Okay, second option of making this error go away is to make this class as an abstract class. That's not a correct solution here. So I'll choose the correct solution, implement methods. Because you have implemented an interface, you have to implement all its methods. So let me just click on methods. Now a dialog will come, okay, which shows me the interface and the method you are supposed to implement in that method here. It's already highlighting the one which is required and it is showing to you. It says android.view.view.onClickListener. That's an interface. And inside that interface, there is a method M which says onClick. You have to implement this method. Since there is only one, I'm just going to click on OK, nothing else. Now the error goes off. Okay, once the implementation is done, the error goes off. You can see that the error went. And let me see where that implementation has been added. It's added to that's the last of your program. It doesn't matter where it is getting added, guys. So let me just minimize all these lifecycle methods. I can remove it also, but let me just keep it there. Okay, so let me just minimize all these lifecycle methods. And last, you see there's a simple method which stays outside and says on click view. Okay, so whichever control was clicked will be passed here. This is an advantage now. Why? Because you told me view. What you're passing as V, what is that? It is the view that was clicked. So now I have three buttons. How will I know which button was clicked? Because that is only is passed here. And I know how to identify each and every button. Okay, so it's very simple to write this code now. Okay, so what I have done here is I've done the first part alone properly. Okay, attach the listener to the class. That's all I've done so far. Okay, this step of writing this word and implementing the method is just the first step. Attach the listener to the class. Second step is ask the object to point to the class. Okay, please note this, guys. It's very essential to understand the statement what I've made. Okay, you are trying to ask the object to point to the class. Object of what? Okay, object of whatever control wants to react. Right now I have three controls which wants to react. Can you notice that here? Okay, I have three controls which I want these three controls to react. Okay, so how do I do that? Ask these controls to listen or set and point that object to this class. What do you mean by this class? Main activity. This is the class, right? There's no other class in this program, only one class called main activity. So I just need to point. Okay, the keyword used in Java to point to its current object. The class's current object is the word called this. I hope you guys would have studied this a lot of times in Java. Okay. I'll repeat again. The keyword used in Java to point to the current object of the class is called as this. So I'll come here. You have already seen that I've created the buttons. So here you see that this is how I wrote for a individual attachment. Here all I'm going to do is I'm going to call add btn and say same thing, set on click listener. But instead of passing the listener's object and view object and all those things, I'm just going to say refer to this class. That's it. Okay, I hope you guys follow this. Same thing I'll do for subtract button dot set on click listener. Okay, where should I point to? Point to this class. Please note that that's the second step. Point to the class. Ask the object to point to the class. I am pointing to the class. Okay, why am I pointing to the class? Because this class is listening to on click listener. Now the class itself has been attached with this listener, so I'll be able to point. So I'm just writing that multiple button dot set on click listener to this class. That's it. So when you call on click listener, you are passing an object, and what object am I passing every time you click on it? Whichever control was clicked on. So if the on click method right now, earlier what I wrote, for each and every method I've written one on click. Okay, now I'm going to reduce this lines of code and make it as simple as if. I'm going to write some if condition. I'll also replace that with a switch case. I leave it to you guys what you like. Okay, so I take this v, which is the control which was passed or the view which was clicked, and it is passed to me. All I need to do is to see that view. If it is add, you have to add those two. If it is subtract, subtract. Multiplication means multiplication. That's all. So before I even start, whether you are going to whether you have clicked on the add button, subtract button, or multiply button, my first part of the code is same, which is these three lines. I'll just copy those three lines. I'll put it here. Okay, I'll just remove those comments and format it. Right now you see that I have just created this. Okay, this is common, isn't it? This part is common whether you are adding, subtracting, multiplying. So I've written it. So any button gets clicked or anything gets clicked, okay, these three lines of code will get called. First thing. Now is your condition coming. If the user has clicked on the add button, C is equal to A plus B. Else if the user has clicked on subtract button, C is equal to A minus B. How do I write that? It's very simple. I'll write a small if condition. I'll say, where will I get which control was clicked on? This is passing, right? So call that V and say, get the ID. Okay, please note, I'll just zoom it a minute. Okay, I want you guys to see this, get ID. Okay, what is this method going to do? This method will return an integer. By now you would have understood what is that ID. Okay, let me just show the quick documentation so that it's clearer. Okay, a positive integer used to identify the view. Okay, or if it is no view, that is different. I just want you to remember it should be a positive integer which is used to identify the view. What is a view? Control. Okay, so which ID would you use to find that particular control? It's very simple. I'll just write get ID is equal to. Please note I'm using double equal to because I'm not assigning, I'm comparing. Okay, r dot id dot btn add. I hope this code is clear to you guys. All right, so please understand what I've written that there, guys. I've just told I have just told the system saying that v dot get id, the view which was clicked on, get the id of it. If it is equal to r dot id dot btn add, what I had mentioned, do something. What do you want? C is equal to a plus b. That's all. Else if, okay, v dot get id is equal to r dot id dot btn sub, all right, c is equal to a minus b. Then I can't put else because if you do not write a number also, it will going that way. I don't want to keep that. Let me put a safer way. V dot get id is equal to r dot id dot btn multiplication. Okay. If this is this case, c is equal to a multiplied by b. Done. Okay, I hope this code is clear. Now you see how big the code was and now how I've made it into a small piece of code. Okay, now last line, this is not part of the if condition because this part is also based on which button you have clicked on. But irrespective of the button you have clicked on, you will set the result. So I'm going to call result set dot set text. I'll write the word result colon and concatenate that with the value of C. That's all. Okay. I'll tell you what that error is coming shortly, but then follow this. All right. These 3 lines of code, you have repeated it everywhere in the 3 blocks of code. Okay. Redundancy has been there, but I've written it only once. So if you clicked on the add button, I will do this first. And if whether you're clicked on the add button, subtract button or multiply button, doesn't matter. I'll do these 3 lines of code first. Okay. And if you have clicked on the add button, I'll say C is equal to A plus B. Else if, I'll say C equal to A minus B. Else if it is multiply button, I'll say C equal to A into B. Now the system is having a confusion. What if it is none of these buttons? You have clicked on something else. Okay. What will be the value of C? You have not assigned it. So it says C might not have been initialized. So I'll just say initialize that variable. What do you mean by initialize it? Initialize it. C equal to 0. Okay, so you have not assigned a value. You just created that variable and kept. You have not assigned a value. Now that error is gone because now if nothing has been clicked on, value will be 0. That's all. That's why that error was coming. I fixed it by the system itself. That's all. Now basically I've written this much lines of code for all the 3 buttons together. But if I follow the first method, my lines of code is this much. Okay, so now you see how beneficial it is to use the second method. The second method now makes my work simpler and no redundancy of the code has been written. Now this is one way of writing. Let me also show you another way of writing. The same thing, you can also write it as a switch case. I've written it as an if else condition. I'm writing it as a switch case also so that you have an idea. I'll be using only switch case, guys. Okay, but anyway, I'll just show this switch case rid dot btn add because here also I have repetition, right? If equal to, I'm writing that v dot get id 3 times. And then this id, here I'll write only one time if I use this. C is equal to A plus B. Case, I have to break also. Okay. Case r dot id dot btn sub means I'll say C is equal to A minus B. Break. Case r dot id dot btn mul. C is equal to A multiplied by B. Break. If you want, you can also add default in case you want. Right now, I'll not write anything. This is also fine. Okay, so this is another way of writing the same code which I have commented below. Writing an if else condition or writing a switch case condition. I leave it to you guys. Whichever you feel it's easy for you, you can follow that. Okay, so I'll be using switch case for some reasons. All right, you can use if also. You can use switch also. Doesn't matter. Both are the same idea. Okay. So this is why I said the code becomes very minimal when it comes to this particular scenario. Okay, this is the second method what I've mentioned. What did I do? I attached the listener to the class and I told the objects to listen to this class. So I asked the object to point to this particular class. That's what we have done here. Okay, this is the second way of attaching event handler or a listener to a particular control. I hope this is clear. The last one is much simpler, guys. Okay, so in order to do the last one, I am again going to comment this part as well as this part. Okay, so let me just Okay, I think if I comment, it will not work much because I've already implemented the interface, so I cannot comment this entire code. So all I'll do is I'll just comment the code what I've written inside that method, nothing else. Okay, only the code I have commented out, so that second method will not work now. Okay, because even if you click on it, it will listen, but nothing is happening in that method, so nothing will happen. What is the third method? Create your own method and attach it in the design. Okay, let's create our own method. Okay, so how do I create my own method? I know the signature. If I know the signature, name does not matter. I just want a signature which will return nothing. Some name should be there. Okay, and what should be passed? View object should be passed. Now, before that, let me go to the design for a minute. Let me go to the design. Let me click on a particular control and let me go to its properties. Okay. In its properties, I'm going to search for a property which says on click. You have a property called on click. Okay. So I want you guys to look at that. You have a property called on click and it is not filled with anything. And when I'm opening this drop down, I'm getting only one choice, on click, which the system created. Okay. If I comment that out, that also won't be there. Let me just comment it out. Okay. Let me remove whatever I did for the first method. Okay. Let me remove this also. Okay. Now I've commented it out. I've removed it. Now nothing is there. If I say these also will have an error. So I'll comment all those things what I did for the previous program. Now let me go back and check my design once again. Okay. On click. Is there any method? No. There is no method in your main activity which will attach to that particular method. So what should I do? I should create my own method. Okay. So how do I create my own method? Let me just write it here itself, or anywhere you can write. Just to clarify, I'll write it here. I'll write public, okay, public void, because signature says void. Name, I need not give on click. I can give my own ways. So I'll just say my on click. Okay, this is not something which is already inbuilt, guys. I'm creating this. Only condition I have is the parameter what you pass should be view. It should be view space v. V is your choice. I just the class name should be view. This should be passed. Okay. Now let me go back to the design and see whether that method is recognized by my on click. Okay. Let me see that here. My on click is recognized. Okay. Now you say whatever method I create, will it be recognized? No. If I remove this parameter and go back to the design, okay, that method will not be recognized. Only methods which have view as a parameter will be recognized, because that is what the interface had declared as a method signature. This signature will be followed. So remember that. Let me go back to main activity. And within brackets, let me write view space, whatever name you want to give. Okay, so I'll give that. And here, I'm going to copy paste the code which I wrote here. Okay, please remember that. I'm going to just take this switch case or the same code. I'll just try to break it into pieces and take. First block I'll take. I'll put it here, which is nothing but take the numbers from the user. Okay, and C is initialized to 0. That is also done. Let me just copy that if else part till the result. I'll copy that. I'll paste it here. And let me remove all these comments. Okay. So now I have the same code written. Okay, let me, this is also fine, guys. This is also fine. Now you see, from V, I get which control was clicked on, and all I need to do is, please note, first method is create your own method. That's what I did here. You have created your own method. Okay, so that is done. And then after that, say attach it in design. I have not attached any of the controls in the design yet. So let me go to add button and choose that particular method. That's all. Now I have attached it. This is the attachment. Okay, so now this button is attached to that method through the design. This method is this will work if you have single control, if you have multiple controls, same logic. Okay, so this is also recommended if you are finding the remaining two are difficult. This is a simpler way of writing code. Anything, as long as my code works, it's fine, right? So I'm going to keep this, but this is not applicable for all scenarios. That's why I said I told you the remaining two also. Okay, so now let me just click the remaining buttons. The button subtract, here also I'm attaching it to my on click. Same same method. Okay, when you click on the multiply button, that also should call the same method. So all the three buttons right now, if I show you the code split with the code, okay, so let me just go to the button part. On click of this button, it will call a method called my on click. This also will call my on click. This also will call my on click. So let me go back to main activity, and my on click will find out which control you have clicked on and then give me result appropriately. Okay, this is what we have done so far. All right, so I think I'll not be able to run the program now, but please try this in your own laptop, guys, and let me know if you're try all the three. Okay, and let me know if you face any issues. First of all, try to do the simple way what I told in the previous class of attaching the listener to individual objects. Okay, then go to the second one by implementing an interface. Okay, and then implementing its methods, and then attaching that particular thing to your class directly by just using the keyword called this. Okay, all these things I leave it to you guys. Please try. The third one is very simple. Create a method with this signature and attach it in the design, and then try to click on that button. This code should get called. Okay, this is what we have discussed in today's class. So with this, I'll stop for today. In the next class, we'll discuss a little bit more about event handling and intents, going from one page to another. All those things we'll see in the next class. If you have any questions, please do ask. Otherwise, please do hold on while I mark your attendance.